probably one of my favorite interviews of all time. Amy Rogers was the head writer of my favorite show on Cartoon Network, The Powerpuff Girls, but she's also a writer for many series, My Little Pony, Fairly Odd Parents, Johnny Bravo, and more. Let's get to know more about Amy Rogers. I want to talk to you about how you got started in your career, Amy,
Okay.
because holy cow, you've worked on some amazing projects. But what was like one of your first early signs that made you want to become a writer?
Um, so uh, I didn't expect to become a writer. I wanted to be an actor. So, but I did creative writing when I was in college, not in college, in high school. I had to take a like college prep class on how to write essays, that kind of stuff, and be a good writer. And I tended to write funny things that the teacher would read out loud. And it was like the first one was about kind of how gross our living room was, our family room, sorry, our family room was. Oh, let me stop that. See, that's not annoying. Hold on. You don't need to hear that. So I talked about like all the stains on our carpet and the furniture and it was all kind of tongue in cheek about how gross but homey my family room was. And the teacher read it out loud and it got all this like good response. I was like, oh, well, that's kind of cool. I've never written something where it gets this feedback. And then I didn't continue. I got a good grade in that class, and my teacher helped me write a good essay to get into college. We read it over and stuff, but I didn't focus on writing at all in college until, so I was a theater major, and in my senior year, I had run out of acting courses to take, and so I took a playwriting class, and I didn't want to take it, and I was going to drop it, and my professor wouldn't let me. He said, "You're going to be good at this." And I was like, "Well, yeah, whatever." And then it turned out sort of the same thing. I wrote things, but then it was dialogue between people, and people responded and laughed. I was like, "Oh, I like that." So then I started realizing that I had a talent for that, so I should keep doing it. And then so that was my undergrad at Occidental, and then I went to Cal Arts for my MFA, but it was my MFA in acting, and they didn't have a playwriting program there, but they did have like kind of at lunchtime you could go and have it was an extra class that you didn't get credit for, but you could write some stuff. So I did that, and they had a new play festival, and so I wrote plays, and it got into the new play festival. So that's kind of how that came about. And then I finished, I got my MFA and pursued acting for a bit, but was continuing to write plays. And I was a member of a theater company, and they read one of my plays, and then a friend of mine decided to produce that play. And I was at that point working on Powerpuff Girls as a production assistant as my day job. Because if you're doing acting theater, you have to have a day job. And they needed somebody. The head writer of the show, wasn't turning things in, and I was kind of like, hey, I write. And so Craig McCracken gave me a chance to write a freelance outline, and then I started writing freelance while still doing my production assistant job. And then I eventually became head writer of the show.
So. Wow. And when Craig McCracken approached you about writing for the Powerpuff Girls, what was your initial reaction? Were you like, finally? Or were you like, oh, okay.
Well, we kind of approached each other at the same time. So I knew that I could do this because I was like, I know how to write, and I'd read the outlines, and so but I didn't know, I was really new to the crew. So I didn't know Craig well at all. And so I was intimidated. He's a tall guy, I'm a tiny person. But he's a super nice guy. So I finally just got up the courage and said, hey, Craig, would you consider letting me, write an outline for the show? And he was like, oh my gosh, I was actually gonna ask you if you wanted to try out, do a sample and try writing for the show. So he was thinking the same thing. And then we, just both asked each other on the same day, and it worked out really well. And it was great. He gave me a chance. It was really, really great.
And that show was nominated during your time for 4 Emmys. Is that correct?
Um, I get confused. I should have better record. Yeah, Powerpuff. I know I got nominated for a bunch with the other writers. So yeah, Powerpuff. It might be 4. I usually what I try and remember is how many dresses I wore. That's how I gauge. I'm like, oh yeah, I was wearing that dress that time, that dress that time. So yeah, that's. But yeah, I would have to go like, okay, and I think one year I was nominated for something for Powerpuff, and then also I think, and again, if memory serves, and my memory's not that great anymore, there was Dexter's Lab Ego Trip. I think we were nominated for that, and that was in the same year. So there's one year that there were 2 nominations, and so it's like that it doesn't help me with my dress counting. So.
Well, I just wanted to say, what was it like, or wanted to ask, what was it like to receive nominations for one of your very first big projects? Like, it's an Emmy.
It was amazing. It was unexpected because I didn't expect to write for animation to start with. I was a theater kid. So yeah, so that was totally bizarre, and flattering and exciting to be part of something that was so incredibly successful, because none of us, at least I didn't, I had no idea. Nobody thought that Powerpuff was going to explode the way that it did. So all of this, so where we worked was down the street from an Oz store, AAHS apostrophe. And do you know that store? It's like, okay, it's this store that has, it has party stuff and, pop culture stuff, that kind of thing. And it's on this big boulevard in the valley called Ventura Boulevard. And so I lived on that street, and I worked on that street. And so, I would drive by, and they had this big, storefront thing with the Powerpuff Girls on it. I'm like, guys, the Powerpuff Girls are there. And we all, like, at lunchtime drove and checked it out. And it was super exciting. Because yeah, for it to have that kind of, popularity we were just working on our show. So yeah, it was really, really cool. And yeah, and then the Emmy nomination was just like, what? This is bananas.
I wanted to say about my history of Powerpuff Girls and how much I loved the show growing up. The show for me in general was just one an escape from my home life. It was a little stressful, but like Powerpuff Girls always made me laugh, always made me smile. The commentary that they would have back and forth was just amazing. Mojo, Jojo, I loved him.
Yeah.
But I want to talk about when writing the show Powerpuff Girls, you guys did talk about serious topics such as fear of being your full self, overcoming the impossible, and dealing with nightmares. What is the secret to writing these themes that are digestible for kids?
I think we just thought about things that we dealt with as kids, and people in animation are kids at heart. So yeah, it's just like you just try and find things that are relatable to everybody, and especially to kids. Getting glasses, or I'm trying to think of what else. Having a bad haircut. Just things that that we all go, yeah, I get it.
Yeah.
So yeah, just trying to come up with relatable things.
And when you were writing those, were you ever like scared to talk about certain topics, or were you kind of just like, let's just go for it and see what happens?
Yeah, I don't think we were particularly scared. And yeah, we just kind of went for it and tried to see what the network was willing to, it just depended on what, if there was a story that came out of it and we felt strongly, we tried to, pick a girl's perspective and go from there.
What was like bringing some of the villains to life, like such as him? Because him gave me nightmares, like straight up. I had nightmares of him for the longest of times. Because like every time they said him, it was like him, and like everything would go silent. Or Mojo Jojo or Fuzzy Lumpkins. Like, what was it like to bring those characters to life?
So I came onto the show, and when I came onto the show, the Bible had been developed. I came on during first season. So all those characters have been established by Craig and the other storyboard artists. So I don't know how they actually came up with that stuff. I remember Paul Rudish, it has to be Paul, came up with, I was around when he came up with the villain princess. He was like, let's just make a really bratty girl.
Yes.
So in story meetings, so just so you know how Powerpuff Girls works, Powerpuff Girls was a storyboard driven show. So we would, we would have story meetings where the storyboard artists and Craig and myself, and then other artists too. If you wanted to come into a story meeting, you were welcome. If you didn't have other work to do. And so we would come up with the idea, and I would be taking notes the whole time, and we'd figure out the whole thing. And I would then write the outline, but then the storyboard artist gets the outline and they draw it and they do the dialogue. So that's how a storyboard driven show works. So really, it's the storyboard artists brought so many things to life. That was one of the hard transitions for me, going from writing plays where I wrote dialogue to writing outlines where I was like, I'm a great dialogue writer. And so I put dialogue into the outlines, and then the board artists wouldn't use it because they had other stuff that they thought was more funny, and it usually was. And I was like, oh, my feelings were hurt at first. I'm like, Amy, that's not the point. That's their job. Their job is to come up with the dialogue, and it's meeting with the action. And so, get over yourself and write a good outline. So I focused on making sure that I was telling a really clear story, so that the board artists knew how to do their job. And, or I gave them, the tools to take, to go and do their job. And so I stopped for a bit. I stopped writing when dialogue was essential. I put it in there just as part of the storytelling. So yeah, and then so that's how Powerpuff, Dexter's Lab, Samurai Jack. That's all that I can think of. That's how those shows were done. And then shows moved to being scripted shows, like Foster's Home for Imaginary Friends. Johnny Bravo was a scripted show. So then I got to write dialogue again. And I did get to write dialogue for a Powerpuff Girls show near, I think it was in season 6. It's called Malinguish, I'm pretty sure. It's either Malinguish or Malingual. And I always every time I talk about it, I'm still confused. But it's all Mojo Jojo talking, because like you, I love Mojo Jojo. And as somebody who loves writing dialogue, to just have somebody rambling on, it was, just my dream. And as head writer of the show, because the show exploded, there were, people wanted interviews with the girls or with Mojo Jojo. And of course, then you need somebody to write the answers, because that's what the interviews, as in, print interviews. So that task fell to me. So I got good at writing the girls and Mojo Jojo's voices for these interviews. And then I ended up writing books and comics, and I did newsletters for Scholastic. So yeah, I ended up writing a lot of dialogue and stuff, but just not for the episodes, but instead for other stuff, which was really, really cool.
I remember the interviews that they would do all the time, and Mojo Jojo was the one that stands out the most, because it's Mojo Jojo. Now they're making a Powerpuff Girls live action.
Okay, yeah.
What are your thoughts about that?
I don't have many. I heard about, my husband told me about it, and I was like, oh, okay, we'll see what happens. I hope it's good. That's my hope. So many things get, reinterpreted, given different lives. It's just kind of the way properties, happens with properties. So all I hope is that it's good and people have fun with it and people enjoy it.
Yeah. I hope so too. I mean, I read that they were, I think, in their 20s, and I was like, what?
Okay.
What? I was like, what's gonna happen? I mean, I'm gonna watch every episode religiously, of course. But from writing the Powerpuff Girls to Foster's Home, Very Odd Parents, and shows like Paw Patrol, Ben 10, is it really difficult to switch up your writing styles between the shows?
it's not too difficult. You just kind of have to immerse yourself in, get outlines and scripts and things, and really do your homework. So like when I wrote for Danny Phantom, I just watched a lot of Danny Phantom.
Mhm.
And Fairly Odd Parents, I'm pretty sure my daughter was already watching that. So I had that in my ear already. And so, yeah, it's just a matter of getting it in your ear. And yeah, something like Paw Patrol is very different because it's a preschool show and it has more of a format to it where, the song goes here and a song goes there and you fill out the story in between there. So it's a lot of homework and how does this character act, and what's the tone of the show, and you're not going to write the same for Powerpuff Girls as you are going to write for Fairly Odd Parents. They're very, very different shows. So just getting versed.
Who was your favorite character to in all the series that you worked with? Who was your favorite character to write for?
It would be on My Little Pony. It would be Pinkie Pie.
Pinkie Pie. I haven't seen much of My Little Pony, but
Oh, really?
how would your experience been with how was your experience writing for the show?
It was great. That was a great show. That's probably one of my favorite shows. Powerpuff Girls, My Little Pony, and then the show that I'm on now are my favorite shows. But yeah, My Little Pony. Lauren said, I'm pitching this new version of My Little Pony. If it gets picked up, I'd like you to write for it. And I was like, absolutely, sounds great. And she just created such a rich world and strong girl characters.
Yes.
That it was easy to write for. Once you knew who it was hard at first because we didn't know who the characters were. And so then you had to you had to try and figure out, because Lauren knew who the characters were, but for all of us to figure it out. And then once you knew that, like the first time I wrote for Rarity was really challenging because she's a very, you want to make sure she doesn't come off as too much of a pain in the butt and comes off as sympathetic. So yeah, it was great. I also got to write a lot of music on My Little Pony, lyrics. And I didn't realize that was something that I kind of had in my wheelhouse till I had to do it. And I ended up writing 2 musicals and, some songs here and there in other episodes. So that was really like fulfilling and fun.
See, my niece watched My Little Pony all the time. We would go to battle about what shows were better. I would actually show her Powerpuff Girls, and she'd be like, I don't know, this show's better. And she'd show me My Little Pony. I'm like, no, this fight scene's better. No, this fight, all the time. And I would say commends on My Little Pony. It was very well written. As an adult, I was an adult male when I first started watching. I was like, oh, this is funny. This is quirky. Like, I get what's going on. And like now there's actually a thing called the brony of adult males who love My Little Pony. And what do you think about that? And also did you ever go to like the BronyCon?
I've been to so many brony conventions.
Yes.
The bronies are awesome. I have many brony friends. So yeah, it was it's great. I mean, you're surprised. You can say, "Oh, I'm surprised they're the bronies," but you're a fan of Powerpuff Girls, so.
Oh yeah, of course. Oh yeah.
So yeah, when people say, "Oh, are you surprised by this?" I go, "No," because of Powerpuff Girls, and we had a huge male fan base. But the internet wasn't what it, back on Powerpuff, the internet wasn't the same. It wasn't as big, and then so My Little Pony exploded in a totally different way because of the internet. And yeah, so I've been to conventions all over the US, and I've been to Germany for a convention. I go there and me and my fellow writers talk about the writing process. I must have tweeted out that I got a ukulele for my birthday years and years ago. And so they're like, hey, you can play your ukulele the next time you're here. And I'm like, hey, I better learn how to play the ukulele. So I played ukulele incredibly poorly to start. I've gotten progressively kind of better through the years, but I'll just do an hour worth of talking and playing ukulele. which is just crazy and ridiculous, but fun. And yeah, they're a really great community. They raise a lot of funds for charities. So like there's a lot of good-heartedness behind it all.
Yeah, and it's about just people appreciating one art in general. Like, and shows like PowerPuff Girls and My Little Pony, they're about friendship, they're about love, they're about
Exactly.
togetherness, they're shows that really talk about the wholesome stuff that's about our
Yeah.
world, and they give a positive light to many different things. They show you how to overcome different challenges. What is like one show or one episode of, let's say, My Little Pony that really really touched your heart?
One that I pitched was Rainbow Dash. You kind of discover that Rainbow Dash has a learning disability in that she doesn't learn by reading things. She doesn't learn the way Twilight learns. And Twilight is a hardcore studier. And Rainbow Dash has a test that she has to pass. And Twilight's like, okay, well, I'll help you, and tries to teach her in a very typical way. And Rainbow Dash it just doesn't connect with her. And then she realizes that when Rainbow Dash flies, she makes note of everything, all of her surroundings. That's the only way she can stay safe and keep others safe. So Twilight devises this system where ponies down on the ground are holding things up, like flashcards, basically, of the things that Rainbow Dash has to learn. And so that's how Rainbow Dash ends up learning, because she's paying attention when she's flying. Whereas if you pop her in a classroom, she's distracted. So that one I really, just the fact that different people learn in different ways, and to acknowledge that and foster that. So that one was special.
Yeah, and it is special because I know I learn much differently than others. I don't learn in the group. I get frustrated in the group, so I like learning by myself, just because like I don't think about the other people around me, because I'm a person that just loves everyone in the room. So I'm just focusing on everyone else but what the teacher's saying. So yeah, that's awesome that you were writing those concepts. You did that PowerPuff Girls. You did that with My Little Pony. But you said you have another project you're working on. What is that?
So I am a head writer of a show, and I never know whether I'm allowed to talk about it. But I've talked about it before, so I'm guessing I don't know. So I'm gonna try and like talk around it in case I'm not allowed to. It's like say I'm attached, but if you did, you would figure it out. So it's a show, and I'll talk about it, but not name the name. It's about 4 African teenage girls who become superheroes. And it's set in Lusaka, Zambia. I was really, really lucky and got to go to Lusaka, and last year it was awesome. And it was partly for research to learn, since we're writing about Lusaka and I'd never been to Lusaka, to learn about their life, the life and the culture and all of that. But then we were also meeting the writers, the potential writers for the show. So we did that. And then once the writers were selected, I went back to Africa, to Cape Town, South Africa, and we broke stories. And it's been an amazing experience because, I spent a week or so. We broke 8 stories in 5 days, which is insane. And it was like just being at writing camp. And you get to know everybody really well, which was great because now the rest is all remote. So I don't get to see my writers, and it's all, via email and that kind of stuff. So it's just been a really fantastic experience, unlike any other that I've had.
And with this new experience, what is something that you've learned from it so far?
Gosh. Just to have these voices that what the woman who created it, her name is Malenga, and the reason she pitched this idea is because she loved superhero shows like Powerpuff Girls growing up, but she never saw herself on screen. And so she's like, I want a show that's set in Lusaka with Black girls like me. And so we went when we were in Lusaka. One of the first things we did was we saw all of these girls ranging from, I don't know, 7 years old to 15 years old doing majorette practice. So like with batons and marching and twirling and stuff.
Oh,
And it was easily 200 girls and just doing their routines and just out on a field. And as I watched, I was like, oh my gosh, these girls have never seen themselves on screen in a cartoon. And now we're going to make something and they're going to see themselves. And that's amazing, that they're going to have this, finally have something and feel seen. So that's really the biggest thing, and trying to make sure that the stories remain true to this world. And so yeah, that's.
I love that, because as Black male, I didn't see that many people on the screen. I had static shock, luckily. But there are so many people that didn't have somebody that looked like them. Black females, they didn't have any, my age didn't have anyone to look at. But now you're creating that, and that's such a beautiful thing. I'm so happy about that. With that included, with the mind of now we're being more progressive with one-arm writing and making sure everything's more inclusive. What advice do you have for young writers today?
Well, especially for people of color, to put yourself out there and tell your stories, and don't take no for an answer. Find a way to get it done, because there are people that want to see that want to feel like their story is being told. So if you feel like telling it, if you're inspired to tell your story, then go do it. Because now, especially, people are like, oh wow, we should actually do this, and so now's a great time to do that, and hopefully we'll have more diversity on the screen.
And I wanted to end going back a little bit, because I forgot to ask this question. Okay. Who is your favorite Powerpuff Girl?
I would say Bubbles.
Yes! Yes!
Bubbles is similar to Pinkie Pie. So that quality of like kind of randomness, bubbliness, goofiness appeals to me in writing. She can be so just like I said, just random, and that's what I appreciate about both of those characters.
Awesome. Amy, I just wanted to say thank you so much for your time. It means a lot to me. Everybody, don't forget, Amy has a new show coming up. She's not allowed to say the name, but be on the lookout for it. For young.
I'll tweet about it once I'm allowed. So.
Yes, for sure. I'll definitely be on you once they announce it, okay?
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Amy.
Thanks. Stay safe.